Far away, in a distant star system, lived a priest named Thaler. He belonged to the ancient and wise alien race called the Zarati. The Zarati had long studied many species across the galaxy, but none fascinated the lore more than humans. Stories about humans were whispered in their great hallstails of raw emotion, fierce will, and strange, unpredictable power. The lore had heard legends about a secret ritual one that could allow an alien to look deep inside a human mind. This ritual was forbidden. It was called the Veil of Minds. No Zarati had ever dared to perform it. The reason was clear. Humans were mysterious and wild, and their minds held secrets that could break even the strongest alien spirit. But Thaler was different. He wanted to understand humans, to see what made them so unique. He believed that humans had a power hidden beneath their chaotic nature, a power no other race had. So, despite warnings from his superiors and the risks to his own mind, the Lord decided he would perform the Veil of Minds ritual. In a quiet temple deep beneath the mountains of his homeworld, the Lord prepared himself. The ritual required ancient symbols, rare herbs, and a long meditation. His hands trembled slightly as he drew the first glowing rune in the air. The air thickened, and a strange energy filled the room. The Lord closed his eyes and began to chant in the old Zarati language. The symbols he drew started to pulse with light, wrapping around him like a cage of energy. Slowly, his consciousness began to leave his body, traveling through space and time toward the human mind. Suddenly, everything changed. The Lord found himself standing in a vast, endless darkness. It was silent, cold, and empty. Then, out of the darkness, flickers of light appeared, memories, emotions, and thoughts of humans, floating like stars in the void. At first, the memories were simple. A child's laughter, the warmth of a mother's touch, the thrill of running. Free, but then the light grew brighter and harsher. Thaler was pulled into moments of deep fear, anger, and pain. He saw battles, betrayals, loss, and hatred, things so raw and intense they made his mind ache. But there was more. Hidden deep inside, Thaler discovered something he could not explain. A strange force, older than the oldest star, pulsed within human minds. It was like a flame burning behind their thoughts, a fire of endless will and determination. No alien mind had ever felt such power before. As Thaler reached out to touch this force, his spirit was shaken. He heard whispers, soft but terrible. The voices told him things that twisted his thoughts, showed him visions of destruction and rebirth of gods made from blood and fire. Suddenly, the darkness around him shattered like glass. Thaler gasped and opened his eyes. He was back in the temple, but everything felt different. The glowing runes faded slowly, but his heart still raced. He knew the ritual had changed him. Something from the human mind had entered his own. He felt fear of what he had seen, and fear of what might happen next. His hands shook as he reached for the ancient Zarati book of records. He wanted to understand what this strange force was, but as he read, the letters blurred and shifted, twisting into shapes that made no sense. Thaler realized then that the ritual did not just show him the human mind, it had started to change his mind. Outside, the stars burned cold and silent. But inside Thaler's heart, a storm had begun. His people warned him to stop. The elders said the ritual was too dangerous, that no one could survive looking so deep into humanity's soul. But Thaler was no longer certain of what was real and what was illusion. The visions haunted him day and night. He started to hear voices, not just whispers from the ritual, but echoes of human memories that seemed to speak directly to him. They spoke of hope and despair, love and hate, war and peace. Some voices begged for help. Others threatened destruction. Thaler's mind was breaking apart, piece by piece. Yet, in the chaos, one thought remained clear. Humans were not weak. They held a terrible power, a power that no one else had. And this power was not just in their bodies or technology, was in their very minds. Thaler knew he had to learn. More, he had to find a way to control this power before it consumed him entirely. But how could he do that when even his own mind was no longer his own? In the silent darkness of his chamber, Thaler whispered to himself, This is only the beginning. The forbidden ritual had opened a door that could never be closed again. The mind's shadow after the ritual. Thaler was not the same. The strange force inside him grew stronger every day. His thoughts twisted between his Zarati teachings and the chaotic voices from human memories. Sometimes he could barely tell which were his own. The elders watched him with worry. They told him to stop searching, to forget the ritual. But Thaler was obsessed. He believed that humans held the key to something greater, a power that could change the fate of all species. One night when the 2 moons of his planet shone bright, Thaler left the temple secretly. He traveled to an ancient archive hidden deep in the mountains. It was said to contain lost knowledge from long before the Zarati ruled the stars. Thaler hoped to find answers there, to understand what that human power was and how it had affected his mind. As he entered the cold stone vaults, strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls. The air was thick with silence and dust. Deeper he went, the more the whispers from his mind grew louder. Voices of humans he had touched during the ritual. Suddenly, Thaler saw a glowing tablet resting on a pedestal. It pulsed with energy, similar to what he had felt inside the human mind. His heart raced as he reached out to touch it. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, a flood of images crashed into his consciousness. He saw ancient battles, civilizations rising and falling, and humans standing tall against impossible odds. But there was one vision that stood out. A hidden race of beings called the Blood Gods. These creatures were said to be born from the chaos. Inside human minds, a force of destruction and creation. Thaler realized the ritual had shown him the truth humans had hidden for millennia. Their minds carried a legacy far older and darker than anyone had imagined. Just then, the archive's doors slammed shut. The glowing symbols turned red, trapping him inside. Panic rose in Thaler's chest. He pounded on the walls and called for help, but no one came. It was as if the building itself had become alive, a prison built to hold knowledge too dangerous to be shared. Hours passed and Thaler's mind raced. He knew he was close to uncovering something important. But the longer he stayed trapped, the more the voices inside his head grew wild. They urged him to surrender, to let the Blood God's power consume him, to join them, and become more than just a priest. Thaler fought to hold on to his Zarati self, but the struggle was exhausting. The human rage and fury inside him burned like a wildfire. Finally, with a surge of will, Thaler forced the glowing tablet from the pedestal. The red light vanished, and the doors creaked open. He stumbled out, breathless and trembling, carrying the tablet with him. Thaler knew the journey ahead would be even more dangerous. The Blood God's power was real, and it was calling to him. But he also knew one thing for certain. Humanity's secret was no longer hidden. And now, the galaxy's fate might depend on whether anyone could control that terrible gift. After escaping the ancient archive, Thaler returned to his temple with the glowing tablet tightly in his hands. The strange power inside him pulsed stronger than ever. The voices whispered endlessly, sometimes cruel, but always demanding attention. Thaler knew he could not ignore them. They were part of the human minds he had touched, but now those minds seemed alive inside him, fighting for control. He decided to share his discovery with the Zarati Council, the highest rulers of his people. Maybe they could help him understand the Blood Gods and the strange power humans carried. But the council was cold and fearful. When Thaler showed them the tablet and told his story, they reacted with anger. "Why did you break the ancient laws?" a stern elder demanded. "You have endangered us all." The Lord tried to explain that humanity's power could be a blessing, not just a curse. The elders only saw danger. They warned him to stop. His research or face exile. Ignoring their threats, Thaler continued his work in secret. He spent long nights studying the tablet and performing new rituals, hoping to control the force inside him. One night, while meditating, the voices became clearer. A deep, powerful voice spoke from within his mind. "You are no longer just Thaler," it said. "You carry the Blood God's legacy. You must choose embrace us or be destroyed." Fear and curiosity battled inside Thaler. The power was intoxicating. He felt his body grow stronger, his senses sharper, but the dark visions of destruction and chaos haunted him too. Suddenly, the temple doors burst open. Armed guards stormed in, led by the council's enforcers. It had come to stop him. The Lord stood tall, the power of the blood gods swirling around him like fire. The guards hesitated. His strength was unlike anything they had seen. "Do not force our hand," the lead enforcer warned. "Give up your dangerous path or face judgment." Thaler's eyes glowed bright. "I will not stop. Humans hold a secret that could save or destroy us all, and I will uncover it no matter the cost." The standoff ended without violence. But the Lar knew the council would not rest until he was silenced. As the guards left, the voices inside him whispered once more, "The blood gods awaken. The galaxy will soon tremble." Thaler understood his journey was just beginning, and the true power of humanity was still hidden deep within. The gathering storm, Thaler knew he was now hunted. The Zarati Council branded him a traitor, but he refused to stop. The voices of the blood gods inside him grew stronger, guiding him to places far beyond what any Zarati had dared to explore. With the glowing tablet as his guide, Thaler traveled to ancient ruins scattered across distant planets. Each site revealed more secrets about the blood gods, their power, their history, and their terrible influence on humanity's mind. But with each discovery, Thaler felt his own mind slipping. The rage and fury within him sometimes overwhelmed his thoughts. He struggled to hold on to his sanity. Meanwhile, rumors of Thaler's forbidden research spread throughout the galaxy. Aliens whispered about the mad priest who dared to touch the human mind. Some feared him, others saw an opportunity. A secret group of rebels from different species reached out to Thaler. They believed the blood god's power could be the key to overthrowing the oppressive galactic concord. The Lore was torn. Could he trust these outsiders, or were they just using him for their own gain? He decided to meet them in a hidden space station orbiting a dying star. The station was old and covered in scars from past battles, much like the burden Thaler carried. When the rebels arrived, they brought proof stolen documents revealing the Galactic Concord's darkest secrets, including lies about humanity's place in the galaxy. Thaler listened carefully. Their plan was dangerous, but it could change everything. Together they formed a fragile alliance. The blood god's power and the rebels' technology might be enough to challenge the galaxy's rulers. But danger lurked close. The Zarati Council had sent assassins to capture or kill Thaler. The final battle was coming, and no one knew. Who would survive? As the space station's alarms blared, Thaler looked at the glowing tablet one last time. "The blood gods are awake," he whispered.
At.
The space station shook violently as the Zarati assassins launched their attack. The Lore and the rebel crew scrambled to prepare defenses, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The Lore could feel the blood god's power rising within him, hotter and more furious than ever before. The voices urged him to unleash the full force, but he hesitated. Using that power could change him forever. The rebels fought bravely, but the enemy pressed forward, cutting through their shields and boarding the station. In the chaos, Thaler faced a choice: retreat with the rebels and lose the chance to unlock humanity's true secret, or stand and fight. Risking everything, he chose to fight. Calling upon the ancient power inside, Thaler's eyes blazed with a fierce light. His body moved faster than thought, striking down enemies with strength no ordinary being could match. But each use of the blood god's energy came at a cost. His mind grew darker, the rage harder to control. Amid the battle, Thaler found himself face to face with a Zarati commander, the one who had once been his mentor. "Stop this madness," the commander pleaded. "You are losing yourself to a force you cannot control." Thaler's voice was cold. "This power is our future, not our destruction. You just fear what you don't understand." The fight was brutal. In the end, the Lore emerged victorious, but the victory felt hollow. The rebels managed to escape, but the station was destroyed. Thaler carried the glowing tablet with him, but inside he knew the blood god's power was not just a weapon, it was a curse that might consume him. As the survivors fled to safety, Thaler stared into the stars, wondering if humanity's second chance would be their salvation. Or their doom. The final choice, Thaler and the rebels escaped the destroyed space station, but the galaxy was closing in. The Zarati Council declared them enemies of the Concord, hunting them relentlessly. Thaler's body and mind were changing. The blood god's power inside him pulsed like a living flame, sometimes a shield, sometimes a storm. He felt stronger, but also more distant from who he once was. The rebels begged him to let go of the power to find peace. But the Lord knew the truth. The blood gods were part of humanity's destiny. On a distant moon, the Lord found an ancient temple, the last resting place of the blood gods. Here, he faced a choice: embrace the full power and become something more than human, but risk losing his soul. Or destroy the power and save himself and those he loved. The voices inside him roared louder than ever. The Lord closed his eyes and reached out to the glowing tablet. For a moment, the galaxy seemed silent. Then, with a burst of light, Thaler made his choice. The temple trembled as the blood god's energy surged, reshaping the future of humanity and the galaxy forever. Whether a blessing or a curse, no one could deny humanity had changed. And Thaler, the priest who dared to look inside human minds, was the first to lead the way. Would you like help turning this into a script or any other format?